Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. My name is Edmond, Kizito, your host. On Spectrum tonight, the 2012-2013 budgeting process. What is the position of civil society regarding priorities? Parliament has begun the process of considering the budget framework paper, one of the key steps that helps government to realign its priorities and also make the right allocations. This process in Parliament involves relevant sector committees meeting these pending sectors to understand the funding pressure and if at all the ceiling that has been provided is enough. Civil society organizations are part of the budgeting process and are often consulted to ensure that the budget is people-centered. The 2012-2013 national budget process comes at a time when the country has faced several challenges, including a troubled economy, meaning that the available resource envelope may be smaller compared to the previous budget. However, it is important that the resources available are properly utilized and directed to sectors that will stimulate growth, development, and social harmony in general. Now, the civil society organizations have also issued a position paper on this budget. So tonight we'll look at the key issues that they are raising, the advice they are giving, and their general contribution toward making the budget pro-people. Our guests tonight, Mr. Julius Mukunda, Senior Programe Director at the Forum for Women in Democracy of World. You're most welcome, Mr. Mukunda.
Thank you.
We also expect to be joined by Ms. Sophie Kyagulanyi, Research Policy and Governance Analyst at ActionAid International. Julius, Mr. Julius Mukunda, how deeply have you been in, how deeply has civil society been involved in this budgeting process?
Good evening, listeners. I think as years go by, we continue to deepen our participation into the budget process, and I think I just probably begin with on a thank you note to government that the budget process is opening up. It continues to open up, and I think our level of participation is also increasing. We are seeing ourselves participating in major government budgeting events such as the budget conference, where we make a presentation and we listen to, but also encourage the government to our own forums and engage them on some of the budgeting issues. So we have deeply engaged. Currently, actually, we are participating in the parliamentary budget sessional committee hearings, education, health, agriculture, and we make position papers on each and every sector of what we as civil society think that are pertinent and key in terms of delivering services to the people. So where we find that there are certain sector budget priorities are a bit not reflecting the needs of the community, then we are able to advise Parliament on that particular areas. In this budget we have a number of key issues, of course, we usually raise, and among them, for example, we are saying that we need to think what we mean by economic growth, the way we do it. When you find that economic growth does not take into consideration the social aspect of life, in fact, some people call it the social aspect of life, then you are only talking about economic growth in terms of percentages, in terms of the value of the country, but you're not talking about in terms of how the quality of life, how inequalities should be narrowed. Then you are likely to find that when you have more inequality, then the general public we tend to have these social unrests, and for us we are seeing these kind of conflicts where you find that people are on the streets. All these are signs that people are not benefiting from the economic growth. So that's one of the key areas. For example, we are telling government that we want government, for example, to ensure that social issues, for example, take part too in terms of economic growth in this country.
All right, we've just been joined by our second guest, Ms. Sophie Kyagulanyi, Research Policy and Governance Analyst at ActionAid International. You're most welcome, Madam Kyagulanyi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, could you give us your own assessment of how this process, the engagement process, is going between government and civil society on the budget?
As civil society, convened under the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, we've had an opportunity to look at the proposals government is making in respect of the 2012-2013 National Plan and Budget, and we've consulted widely within civil society who represent various communities where civil society is working, and we have a number of concerns aligned for specific sectors. And we will be engaging with specifically members of parliament and specific committees of parliament, bringing to their attention the various issues that are coming out from the communities where we're working, especially in the context of social service provision, which is the major role of this government, especially towards its citizens.
So what are some of the areas? Take us deeper on the social side. What exactly do you mean?
Of course, there are issues that we've raised, even we raised in the previous planning process. Issues, for instance, in the education sector, issues around the teachers' welfare. There are still issues that are preoccupying us this time, and they're still coming out because they haven't been addressed already. And there are issues in the healthy sector as well, issues of having structures that are not fully equipped and not fully resourced, which are also coming out as well. And of course, the service of health is a questionable service, especially if you bring in concerns of women and you bring in issues of maternal health. There are varying issues that are concerned with maternal health that are also coming out.
All right, Julius, let's look at the broad picture. What can be changed structurally speaking?
I think we're a country where we have stopped the issue of saying no money, no money, no money. We are really at a point where we have the money, but I think our challenge is in terms of how we are investing this particular money. Take, for example, you find that actually, for example, like agriculture, you find that 73% of the budget for agriculture actually is in terms of, it's a consumption expenditure. Which means, that you are investing somewhere where you're not likely to get returns immediately. I think that you see that we have the money, but the way we are spending it. And I think for me, this goes to most of the sectors. And I think for us, we are saying that it's high time we begin to invest money in investment that can be able to bring returns. You should be able to buy seeds, for example, train farmers in skills that they can be able to apply new technologies. Those are things that are likely to bring back investment. The other part I think we need to look at to sort our problem is the question of supplementary expenditure. And I think we have really abused the whole budget process, where Parliament sits down, allocates money, but 3 months down the road, you immediately come back and say, I want money. Then another 3 months down the road, you come back. I think we have really abused the question, the whole issue about participating in the budget process. And we think that it's high time we have a supplementary policy on how money should be, how supplementary expenditure should come about. Currently, you spend money, come for approval. That's how it is.
You don't get the approval before.
No, you spend and come for the approval. But anyway, we also know supplementary they could be okay. But also is that we find ourselves that we are spending money again on public administration itself. In the last supplementaries, took nearly 64% public administration. If supplementary was for
service provision,
no, that's what she was talking about, social service delivery. If supplementary was for buying mama kits, if supplementary was recruiting medical doctors, if supplementary was for the nodding disease, nodding disease actually was, they were looking for money, they couldn't have, they were failing to get the money. We would say fine, it's okay. So for us, I think that's the other issue. We should really tighten our opening. We are glad that the Budget Act actually is going to be reviewed, and we feel that this is one thing that should be put in place. And there are certain things that definitely should not be reflected in the supplementary budget. The supplementary budget comes because you had not planned something and it has appeared.
Yes.
But you can't say you never planned that you would go for a workshop. You can't say you never planned that you will photocopy. You can't say, those are the things that we feel that are abusing the whole process. I think for me, also the other important area before Sophie comes in is the whole question of central versus local government expenditures. Out of 10 trillion, the coming financial year,
yes,
out of 10 trillion that they are going to spend, only 2 is going to be transferred to the local government. And this is why the bulk of service delivery takes place. This is why a doctor stands and provides the prescription and the medicine. But only 2 trillion out of 10 goes down to these 100 and something districts of our own. Worse still is that this money is conditioned. Spend on medicines only if not bring back the money. And we are seeing very many districts, and especially those districts that need more money, districts like Kabong, Nakapiripiti, Kanungu, returning back money to the treasury simply because they could not spend that money because that money was conditionally locked, conditionally attached, and it is even still very low. So again, those are the issues that we need to address. Expand our fiscal decentralization to ensure that
expand our fiscal what?
Fiscal decentralization,
yes,
whereby you are
more money goes to the local government.
Yeah, more money, but also you are given a leeway to determine how you're going to spend that particular money. At least currently it's 10%, but I think they should be able to increase it something like 40%. Look at Karangara. At first they would say build roads only.
That's in the island.
In the island. These guys wanted landing what? Landing sites. But they would return back the money because they would not do the roads. And until I think somebody, the Karangara people were raised up and said no. So we need those kind of flexibilities that we think could improve on our budget process.
All right, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight, the 2012-2013 budgeting process. What is the position of civil society regarding priorities? Our guests tonight, Mr. Julius Mukunda, Senior Program Director at Forward. Forward is the Forum for Women in Democracy, and Ms. Sophie Kyagulanyi, Research, Policy and Governance Analyst at Action Aid International. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Madam Sophie.
Edmond, on the issue of fiscal decentralization, one of the challenges you find that even this 2 trillion may not even go to adequate use. Why? Because some of these new districts don't have structures.
Yeah.
There are no health centers in these new districts. The whole administration of new districts stayed in an older district. So if you give just a token to this new district, it's not even going to go to any useful purpose. You see? So there's an issue around even the creation of districts that brings in a challenge even for the new districts. But besides, in terms of what do we need to change structurally, we are saying that we've seen that over the last 2 years there have been a lot of abuse of the procurement processes, and you've seen a number of allegations coming out that procurement processes were abused. We couldn't procure properly identification cards development process for citizens of this country.
The national ID.
The national ID.
That one is a big scandal, a huge scandal.
There are a number of those scandals that brought with procurement relating with the abuse of the procurement procedures. Structurally, that needs to be corrected because we have a whole procurement system in this country, but it's not guiding in any way on procurement, and that's we are losing a lot of money through procurements alone. On the issue of there are a number of institutions that are undermined in terms of functionality. Why are they undermined? They are not a priority to this country.
Which
and as such, they are not given sufficient resources and adequately resourced to function as institutions.
Talk to us about those.
I'll give you an example of the justice institutions of this country. It's a fact that accessing court doesn't mean that justice is going to be delivered. For instance, you can take your case to court, but you won't get justice. Why? Because the institution cannot function. It cannot deliver on justice. Then there are not a sufficient number of judges on the bench to deliver justice, to even conclude on a particular matter, to adjudicate on justice. All those questions are still languishing there, and thus institutions are not performing.
Okay, let's try to look at the mind of government. Is it attuned to the suffering of the people?
That's why I was going to say that there's a whole issue around prioritization of this country. Why is the priority of this country?
Is it because
of this country?
Let's get it clear. Is it because the government is bad intention? Is it because it's incompetent?
It may not be bad intentioned or incompetent, but where is its interest? Is the interest of the government in the development of its people? If the interest of the government is in the development of its people, we wouldn't be having issues of nodding disease preoccupying the country, and it's not even addressing it. It's even failing to allocate resources to it, and is asking Minister of Health to look within the resources they have, already prioritized and allocated for something different, actually calling for a diversion of that resource to go to nodding disease. If it actually had concern and priorities for its citizens, we wouldn't be having issues of allocating a bigger chunk of money to procure, helicopters.
Oh, we need helicopter, even jets we need.
It depends. We'd have a balanced prioritization and a balanced allocation of resources within sectors that directly affect citizens of this country, which they benefit from, which actually contribute to the development of the citizens of this country, and even those sectors that need them to be developed. That's what we are saying.
So the heart of the matter is the matter of the heart. The government doesn't quite care.
Maybe it cares, but we need to see it caring much more by allocating resources, because we do have resources as a country, to those sectors where issues of concern for citizens are more resident. Issues of non-employment. These should have been dealt with long time ago, but they're still preoccupying this country, and there's no sufficient resolution that is coming out on the table.
Well, the Ministry of Labour is squeezed between other things, gender, labour, and social development.
That's what
squeezed
I talk
in the middle
about,
there.
undermining institutions. Why is it squeezed in between? Why is it not an issue? Why is it not
an independent ministry?
Why is it not an independent
Ministry of
ministry
Labour?
to have its own vote, to be allocated resources to take care of issues of unemployment in this country?
Because they also need to factor this into as a function of across the board in all government. Ministry of Defence, whatever, Ministry of Work, they would work knowing they're targeting unemployment because it's an issue.
I mean, you see the whole, when you say structures, whether government has the interest of the people or not. For me, the whole question, the fact of the matter is that the structures are not delivering. You come to the Equal Opportunities Commission, for example, a commission in charge of dealing with inequalities in this country, to say this region is poorly in service delivery, this region is poor, determining how the resources are supposed to be shared. But this is a commission that is, they only pay them salaries.
Yes, they don't have this.
Only. They only pay them salaries. You get salary, and sometimes you want.
Maybe they even get vehicles.
Why do you put them? Why do you put them in place? If you give them only salaries, I mean, if you give you
let's get this clearly. We have an Equal Opportunities Commission,
yes,
which is supposed to determine how many generals come from which region, but they don't have offices.
No, they don't have offices. I mean, they have offices, but the whole matter is that
they don't have stationery.
You have the office, but you can't function simply because you have no funding to operationalize, to execute your mandate, to go to a sector and say, please, we need 1, 2, 3 to be done. You can't do it. You can't go to the field to verify whether actually what a sector is supposed to do is exactly doing it. So you just sit down there. So. And I think for me that's a fact. So whether you have interest of the nation or not, the fact will tell itself that this structure is not working. It needs to deliver. And there's one important thing I think we need to look at. There is no way we can shy away from the question of how this country has managed the economic crisis.
Yes.
I think we should shy away from that one. And for us, civil society, we think that the measures taken were actually more damaging than what was happening.
Which measures?
Because if you decided to target inflation...
What's wrong with that?
It means that you are going to, when you increase your bank rate, that means the interest rates are going to increase. That the small businesses that were surviving on this small interest are not going to survive. Yet you should have targeted unemployment, or you should have targeted food security, because food security itself was causing 50% of the inflation. So if you say, I think if we have the issue of food, then let us put more money in producing food. But again, you are not doing that. You decide to say no. Let us remove money from circulation, and then you target something different from what we are supposed to be done. And look at it now with the Ministry of Agriculture budget. This would be the time when the Ministry of Agriculture budget would be increasing. But this current financial year,
it's being slashed.
It has been slashed, and it's not going to have the same level of this or the same level of budgeting this financial for the next 3 years.
And food prices are a serious issue. The CBR cannot be lowered because inflation is going.
Where are our priorities? Where are our priorities? It is 50% of inflation was caused by food
inflation.
prices.
30% of the budget of the inflation, the CPI is
when it
28%.
Yes. And now instead of saying let's put more money in food for production of food, grow more food, because that's basic knowledge that let's grow more food, you've decided to use the money for agriculture. I think that's a very big mistake for this kind of budget structure.
All right. I would like us to talk about the key priorities, your perspective, and we'd like to mirror that against the government's own priority. But before we do that, we'll go for a commercial break. Listen, this is Spectrum on radio, and we'll be back. Do stay tuned. Sophie, how are you?
Let the sunlight in.
Good morning, sunshine of my life. You look happy today.
I am. I came in here and I saw there was a whole pile of washing to do.
But I thought you didn't like doing the washing.
No, I love it. Anything else you need washed?
Sunlight 2-in-1 with added fabric softness. Smells so good, you want to use it again and again.
Let the sunlight in.
Sunlight 2-in-1. Sunlight clean, sunlight fresh.
Sunlight in. Happiness is all around. Let the sunlight in.
When Junior lost his appetite, his mother tried all methods to get him to eat. She tried scary stories.
Eat, Tommy, eat, or the big black elephant will come and eat all your food.
She tried magic.
Tommy, if you eat your food, I will turn this handkerchief into sweets. Look, bumble, bumble, boom, boom.
Then she discovered Apetol multivitamin syrup with lysine.
Mommy, I finished all the food. I am number 1.
Apetol multivitamin with lysine is helping mothers to turn mealtime frustration to a fun moment. Apetol has a great taste and contains lysine, which quickly improves your child's appetite and supports healthy growth. Apetol, health for life.
Wait, turn off the music. Guys, please, no like cows.
My wife is calling and I told her I was going to the farm.
Honey, how is the farm?
The farm is very fine.
And the cows?
You can hear they're grazing.
Well, next time tell them to eat grass and not beer. I'm seated behind you.
Hi, honey.
Unlike humans, structures built with Hima cement don't lie. Different types of projects require different cement. We offer the widest range of cement products in the market and are most preferred by all kinds of builders. So if you're thinking about building, think Hima cement. Hima cement, part of you from the start.
John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He is just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special. You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Accept no substitutes.
Radio 1, FM 90.
Welcome back. This is Spectrum on Radio, and tonight, the 2012-2013 budgeting process. What is the position of civil society regarding priorities? Our guests tonight, Mr. Julius Mukunda, Senior Program Director, Art Forward. Forward is the Forum for Women in Democracy, and Ms. Sophie Kyagulanyi, Research, Policy and Governance Analyst at Action Aid International here in Uganda. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Julius, talk to us about the key. I would like us to talk about the key priorities as you see them and what the government is doing. The different sectors: health, education, poverty eradication, agriculture. What are your priorities if you are to write the budget tomorrow?
Yes, I think that's a very good question. I mean, if we are to write the budget tomorrow, I think we really have what the fundamental change that the president talked about when he was coming to power. I mean, we have the whole system would be restructured. Would, for example, ensure that we deal with we are glad that for example education is the number one priority in this country, which I think would maintain as civil society organizations would maintain.
You would give it the same thing, the same level of government is giving.
Would give it the same way, but we would deal internally. We would deal with the question of quality of education, because automatic promotion, I think, for us should be a thing of the past. That you have to go automatic. We would deal with education. In health, I think we have removed the whole schooling system from the parents. Their job is to produce children. We are even now trying to say we should now provide food for the children, and I think we should begin to get parents involved. So we should, the banning of PTAs, we should ensure that the school management committees are functioning, but also that PTAs are also functioning. That parents must own schools. I think that's something that is missing, and that's why the quality of education has gone down. But above all, I think for us we should prioritize girl child education, because the retention rates are very low and they have got high dropout rates. So we would ensure that we put in place mechanism that for girls to stay in school. That would put aside. We would come to agriculture, because agriculture, the majority of the country are depending on agriculture.
80% of the population.
Instead of reducing it, would actually.
But why would they reduce it? Let's try to understand the kind of mind that reduces spending on agriculture. Food prices are going up, and we're not talking about agriculture. We're cutting the budget. Where are we going to put our money?
You know, recently when we were meeting with the Ministry of Finance officials, they were telling us that agriculture is everywhere. That it is in roads,
health and other things.
That is in health, that is in education. But because we have fragmented agriculture like that, that's how now there is no impact on it. Because I remember one time when Dr. Malinga was talking about how...
Who's Dr. Malinga?
The former Minister of Health.
Malinga.
Yes. When he was talking about how health institutions have suffered at the Ministry of Education, when he found that nurses were practicing injecting people by using oranges. And I think that is the same thing that institutions of agriculture also probably are suffering, because if
they take it to non-core,
yes, umbrellas, the profession has died out. So I think for us that is something that where we find that that all money that belongs to agriculture should come to agriculture. And we would prioritize the following. For example, we would ensure that there is irrigation.
Yes.
Small and large-scale irrigation would definitely be prioritized.
Agriculture extension workers?
Yes. We would ensure that agriculture extension workers really are functioning and come back to government. And for us, the other important part is to start an agricultural bank. Because this is the bank that understand farmers' needs, and they will hedge against increase in prices, rain, and everything. So,
and maybe they would fund backward and forward linkages, textiles,
definitely,
food processing, manufacturing.
The other important part is the value chain. We ensure that there is value for the products in agriculture that are being done. But I think above all is that we need to ensure that we store our food. So in terms of crisis, we stabilize the prices. In terms of plenty, we buy from the farmers. To me, that's
food silos everywhere.
Yes, food silos everywhere. And I think the other also is about training for our farmers. And I think that is very important. That new technologies have come up. You don't need to still grow to raise to have cows which will take centuries to mature and to mature and you get money out of it. So we need those new technologies definitely that can come up.
All right.
So
how about talk about agriculture? How about the use of fertilizer? Our soil is still fertile enough. We don't need fertilizer.
You know, I think it's a question of agricultural practices that we conduct. Recently, somebody was telling us that, in Masaka, all the soils are no longer fertile. But there are certain groups in Masaka, like the nuns, our own churches, when you go to their farms, they are splendid, simply because of the kind of agricultural practice they are doing.
So the agricultural extension workers are needed to guide the people.
They are needed to guide the people. But we can't forget about different fertilizers, because there are certain cases where we need fertilizers. But I think we
can still do it without. Okay. So we talk to us about health specifically and poverty eradication.
Health specifically, we are talking about maternal health.
Yes.
Because maternal health has been an issue.
Maternal and child health, MCH.
Maternal and child health, which comes in much more stronger, and also will bring in the issues of nodding disease, because now it's spreading. It's bringing
Is it spreading?
Yes, it's going to Lira. It's going to other districts outside the former.
Have we found the cause for it?
No, we haven't found the cause.
But it was in Tanzania in 1985.
Yeah, we are still speculating on what the cause is, and that's why there's need to invest in that area and investigate what is the cause and address the causal factors of nodding disease. But still, the issue of maternal health still comes out much more strongly.
Yes.
But also, we're saying that resource the healthy facilities that we do have in Uganda. Let there be drugs. Let there be healthy personnel. Let there be services whenever people access them. Don't let them be accessed when there's actually nothing, because people will still not go to them, and they will not be adding any value to their being in existence. In terms of agriculture, we are also saying that we need agriculture for production and development. You know that the National Development Plan has it's supposed to be driven by private sector-led growth.
Yes.
But here, previously, we had the PEP, which was
Poverty Eradication Action Plan.
Yes, which was majorly led by agriculture production, and maybe the National Development Plan has changed pillars and priorities, and now is more privatization, where also agriculture can be looked at privatization. But here we are saying is that we want agriculture for production and production for development. We need more people in agriculture, we need more employment within agriculture, and we need more development. However, we can't run away from talking about land. There are issues around land, and land relates with agriculture. The issues of ownership of land and control of land. For women, we've already asked for women's control and ownership of land, because the percentage Julius talked about of 80%, a bigger part of that are actually women. And if women don't own and don't control land, the production won't be governed by them. The production of resources from land would not be determined by the women who are in the production itself. But still, there are issues coming around in terms of land being used by foreign direct investors. And when foreign direct investors come in, maybe they're growing land, maybe they're growing food for their own countries and not for Ugandans specifically. That's why you will find that we'll have a food shortage in the near future. On the issue of education, we also don't want to move away from the welfare of teachers, because the quality of education relates so much with the welfare of teachers specifically. So we want government to consider the issues of teachers' welfare and bring them on the table, open the dialogue, open the discussion, and consider what the teachers are bringing on board. That's what I think.
How about poverty eradication?
Poverty eradication, we are talking about...
What was the power button?
Yes, we're talking about, we've had a number of poverty eradication initiatives in this country, but there's still a bigger question of whether poverty has actually been eradicated. And we're saying that let's have a review of all the initiatives we've had in poverty eradication.
You mentioned PIP, Poverty Eradication Action Plan.
Yes.
Under which had, I think, PMA.
Yeah, but we've had
the
a
Plan for
number
Modernization
of
of
either
Agriculture.
programs or projects on poverty. We even have NADS now.
NADS came out of PMA, I think.
Yes, we even had Bonaba Gagawale. We've had a number of those, but what contribution did they make?
So what should we do?
We're saying review them, see the best practices within them. Let's build on the best practices, come up with a better program for poverty eradication. But also, let's address the issues that those particular programs and initiatives bring on board that maybe prevented them from eradicating poverty, because we still see it. The levels are increasing even.
Yeah, levels of poverty.
Levels of poverty are increasing. But however, we can't...
but indicators show poor people are, getting fewer.
But it depends on where we're assessing that poor people are getting fewer. There are more poor people where we stay. Where we work, there are more poor people. So where is that assessment being done?
You don't trust the figures from the world.
We need to review that.
We need to review it.
Yes.
But still, we know that Uganda is going to be producing oil.
Top 50 oil producers.
Yes, in the next 20 years, one of the top 50 oil producers. We need to also invest in that. We need to understand that oil production does not necessarily mean that we should be silent on other sectors that contribute to production and growth in this country, and especially revenue. I am sure when we talk oil, when we go oil, many of us will forget that agriculture is the backbone of this country. And besides that, Uganda is an agrarian country where we derive so much on agriculture. So we need to invest and sufficiently resource the agriculture sector to support even the Uganda that will be 20 years after oil production.
Right.
Because it will be a different Uganda, yes, but oil is not going to take us forever. It's only for a short time of life.
And there are places that have a lot of gaps. Agriculture feeds a great deal of the manufacturing industry. And it's saddening that we are importing powdered mango powder from India and other places to make fruit juice here. And we could grow mangoes.
Yeah, and we could grow mangoes
here.
Because we have fertile.
Some of them grow wild. And so there are a lot of gaps in planning.
You see, Edmond, to me the whole question is that the prioritizing and the way we are investing our money. Because if you read this, if you know that you have the capacity to produce agricultural goods, for example,
put strength there.
You put strength there.
Cotton prices are at the farm gate level are very low.
Yes.
And if we're importing all our clothes, this shirt is imported.
Put money there.
Some of this
Put something that actually you can use
made here.
You go to Katakwi. This guy is producing a lot of G-nuts. All of it is just packed and transported to Sudan. We are not saying that is wrong, but if it was processed,
you get a better price. You get it into Sainsbury's in London.
I would love actually the president to go in and look for farmers and give them money. You buy meters and then they start processing the G-nuts.
All right.
But anyway, there's something important here about I think there's an opportunity for us to make a change. That there is a budget act which is coming up, and I think for me, reviewing it would give us the opportunity for us to ensure that the resources are allocated effectively. We would be able to look at issues of classified expenditures, for example.
Yes.
Because now it would be
You want to open those up?
Yes, we would like to open them up. Everybody open them up.
But the enemy might hear about it.
Yeah, we would want to look at how oil revenue will be managed, for example, because currently it's not taken
care of. About confidentiality clauses there?
Yes, they will get MPs and they swear them upon the living God that they will not say anything outside the parliament. Issues to do with supplementary budget, issues of setting budget ceilings. I always want to how do you decide that agriculture gets 300 billions only?
Well, but we need money to treat people abroad, 380 billion. So what's the problem?
What's wrong with the hospitals we have in Uganda? Why don't you equip them?
And what shocks me is that they go to be treated on diseases that we can treat here.
Some of them get flu, and they need to be treated.
So for me, I think we need to look at that.
Flu here.
Yes, we need to look at that, Edmond. We need to look at that and say yes. We need to look at that and say, I think in terms of the budget act revision, this is some of the issues that are supposed to be there.
This is Spectrum on Radio 1, the 20 2012-2013 budgeting process. What is the position of civil society regarding priorities? You can call in now. Our number is 041-434-8111, 031-226-0390, 031-226-1390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you are calling from. Spectrum, hello?
Hello, good evening, Edmond.
Good evening, your name?
Yeah, this is Wako.
Hello? Hello?
Edmond.
Yes, sir, your name?
Good evening, Jim.
Yes, Jim. Yes. Spectrum, hello?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, your name?
Patrick Arman.
Yes, Patrick. Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, your name?
Yes, Kelly is my name.
Kelly.
Now,
let's take Spectrum. Hello. Yes, sir. Your name? Could you switch off your radio or walk away from it?
I'm doing that.
Yes, sir. Your name?
Yes, my name is William, and thank you for the show this evening.
All right, William, thank you very much. Let's get back to the studio. Sophie?
I would like to thank the callers for the comments they've brought on board. One caller alluded to funding to send to local government. I must say, Edmond, that we currently as a country are suffering a challenge of running a government. The cost of running a government is becoming high on the citizens of this country. All the revenue we have is seen or is used to run a country. We are not asking questions of whether there is any benefit. I think we are yet to conduct a cost-benefit analysis on whether we do need...
We're getting what we deserve from government.
We deserve from government. Having all those government representatives, officials, RDCs, the departments, the ministries, the institutions,
advisors,
parastatals, everything we do have that is government, do we actually get the benefit from their being there? The number of members of parliament that we currently have, the number of ministers, the number of district chief administrative officers, RDCs, cows, and you go down each of them with the cars they use, the fuel they use, the meetings they attend, the workshops, everything. Do we actually get a benefit? We need to conduct a cost-benefit analysis as citizens, because as citizens we are the biggest contributors to their being there. But if we contribute and they don't contribute to any of our development and our benefits, then I think we should ask a lot of questions. When one caller talks about institutions not being manned by qualified personnel, there's another bigger problem. The institutions to be even asked accountability from are not there. What
do you mean?
You could go to a district, a new district, and you, of course, the agenda would be demanding accountability for failure either to perform or for performing well or for even omission. But the structure is not yet fully resourced, or even resourced with human resource or even financial resource. So there is nothing in terms of, but the district is a new district, it's allocated resources to. But there are also other concerns coming out from the work that we are doing and we are still establishing. They are resources that are allocated to specific districts, but in the essence of utilization of those resources, they go to another district.
How does that happen? Osmosis?
Not by osmosis. I think there are agreements and memorandums of understanding that are being signed between districts, where you sign a memorandum of understanding that as the chief administrative officer and maybe the RDC of Masaka, I'll ensure that when funds come in for this particular vote, I'll pass them to, let me say, Rego as a district for ABCD, but Rego also has a specialized vote and Rego gets its specified amounts of money.
That's something we need to study.
We are still studying it, and we will let you know what comes out of that.
Right. I think for me there's one thing which Kelly talked about. He was asking whether people get involved in the planning and the budgeting processes. I think districts have endeavored to do that. But the trends are not very welcoming.
Yes.
Because you find one is they go on, consult people, develop plans. But the central government has got some priorities on what they want to be done. So already that's a mismatch. They give them the ceiling, this amount of money, you're supposed to spend it on roads, education, health, agriculture. That's it. Anything else beyond that one, do it on your own. That's number one. Number two is that communities now are not actively involving themselves in this planning and budget process. In fact, once they go there, this pay us the money so that we can participate in your planning and budgeting processes. Why? Because last financial they came and said, what do you want as a community? They said, oh, can you please fix that bridge? It is disturbing us. We want to connect another market. At the end of the financial, the bridge is not fixed. They come in another year. What do you want as a community? They say, we told you we want that bridge. It's not done. Next time they come and say, no, pay us, because in any case it seems you're just fulfilling a certain demand. You are ticking a box. So if you pay us, then we can tell you what we want. That's how the level of participation has come to. And I think it's high time that we need to ensure that the priorities of the people are respected in terms of the planning and budgeting process. And I like the idea of a who said mindset transformation of our leaders. I think the whole idea of Nafunirawa should stop.
How one benefit?
Yes.
Personal, private benefit.
Private benefit. I think that one should stop. It's the question of delivering service to the people.
Right.
And if you don't do that, then it becomes a bit of a big
challenge. Of course, there's a campaign to preach patriotism. Sophie, does corruption affect the budget?
I was actually going to talk about, when you say,
how could we not say about that?
Private benefit. I was going to say that actually there is a structure, there is a procedure that is defined that will help us guard against private benefit. We currently have the Whistleblowers Act, which encourages individuals of this country, citizens,
to report
where you suspect that there is some enrichment that is not, adding up. Make mention of that.
Yes.
There is a procedure for you to make mention that I know this person does ABCD, but from the information I have, the salary cannot allow that person to be this rich.
We're a big dummy.
Please investigate.
Yes.
Corruption, yes. yes. Because resources are being lost at corruption.
Right.
And to make matters worse, we don't see responsiveness to addressing corruption.
Right.
You see, we have lost immense resources as a country through corruption, but we don't see.
And yet we want to build a middle class. Why do you oppose a middle class growing?
But a middle class won't be built on corruption.
Julius, maybe we'll talk about that in detail another time. Are tax collections too many? Do they affect the budget? Tax exemptions.
Tax exemptions? Yes, definitely. Tax exemption is one way where we are reducing, in fact, where we're reducing our capacity to finance our budget.
We have to go. Yes. Thank you very much, Lydia. Very, very briefly, Sophie.
Tax exemptions.
Yes.
We've conducted a study as ActionAid, a regional study, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi.
Yes.
And we are finding out that we actually lose a lot of resources through tax incentives specifically, and tax exemptions. So we need to investigate. We are recommending that let's review the whole process of tax incentives and investigate where we're losing money and guard against those, because we have all those investors in this country to benefit as a country and to develop and grow. So let's benefit and grow instead of losing resources.
We have to go. Thank you very much, dear guest, Mr. Julius Mukunda, Senior Programe Director at the Forum for Women in Democracy. Thank you very much for coming to Spectrum tonight. Ms. Sophie Kyagulanyi, Research Policy and Governance Analyst at ActionAid International. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond, Kizito. Spectrum. We'll be back tomorrow. Up next is the news in English. Just stay tuned.